Hey, what is up, everybody? Welcome to the live stream. I know it's been a little bit since we went live. I am super excited for tonight's live stream. We've got Bryan Smith of Hard Truth Distilling in Indiana. And if you guys have not had Hard Truth Sweet Mash Rye and these malted ryes, you guys are going to want to watch tonight's episode. It's going to be really good. I'm going to bring Bryan on in just a second, and then we're going to bring Ed and Ben, Patreon members, on. And we are going to taste through these today. As you guys saw, I dropped a review of all three of them. They scored really high on our scoring system. One of them even scored bunker worthy. And we are just going to bring Bryan on right away because we've got about, 45 minutes or an hour with Bryan.
Hey, Lance.
Hey, Bryan, how are you, man?
Good. How are you, buddy?
Good. Thanks for coming on, man. I'm so excited to try these with you because once again, you blew me away with your expressions.
That's a nice compliment. Thanks, Lance. I really appreciate it.
Yeah. So I guess real quickly, first, we'll just start off. If you want to just kind of introduce yourself, if you want to tell the people about Hard Truth Distilling for those that haven't heard. I mean, I've been talking about you guys since 2020 into 2020, beginning of 2021, I think. So I think most of our people have heard about you, but there's probably some that haven't. So
sure. Well, I'll do the nickel pitch then. So we're a craft distillery in southern Indiana. We're in about an hour and a half north of Louisville, Kentucky, about an hour south of Indianapolis in Brown County, Indiana. So if anyone's ever been there before, most of Indiana is flat with cornfields, and then you get to the Bloomington, Brown County area. Beautiful hardwood forests, hills and hollers, lakes, streams. It's a beautiful, beautiful place to be. Beautiful place to build a distillery. So we've got great water. We've got beautiful environment. So we actually built the distillery carved it out of 325 wooded acres. We are a fully experiential based distillery. Most people think about distillery tours, and they're open from 12 to 3 days a week, and you got to get in there, and you got to get in and get out. You can't drink very much, but we're just the opposite. Open 7 days a week. We're open restaurant hours. We do all kinds of tours. We do distillery tours, rack house tours, side-by-side ATV tours, mixology classes. We have a bar, a little tour center in the front, big, beautiful distillery in the back with a restaurant attached, about a 300-seat restaurant, and then this really cool porch and about 1,000-person outdoor music venue down below in the woods. It's a really, really terrible place to work. I hate going there every day.
Yeah, you got a rough life, man.
Yeah. So yeah, no, it's a beautiful place. So definitely plan to come visit. In fact, I reached out to a few people that were posting some stuff down at the Bourbon Classic in Louisville. Some folks I connected with, and I was like, "You guys, we're an hour and a half north." So I've actually got some folks coming up tomorrow. It's gonna be pretty cool. So,
oh, nice. Well, I
yeah.
can tell you, if Hard Truth was in Kentucky, it would be the best distillery to tour by far. It wouldn't even be close, in my opinion.
Oh, that's really, thank you, man. It's we don't. There's a couple things. We don't really have the restrictions based on history. There are a lot of those restrictions that are in current distilleries in Kentucky are based on historical. Like a lot of times they're dry counties where these distilleries were. So they could make a ton of alcohol but not drink any of it. So I mean, definitely go see all those distilleries. They're great. Nothing knocking them, but we've got a unique thing going on. So on top of the experience part, we've got a big, beautiful custom Vendome continuous column, 14-inch continuous column. So similar to the same one that Kentucky Peerless has. So we're making, that column makes incredible juice. We're a 100% sweet mash distillery. Everything we lay down is sweet mash. We've got about 4 rye mash bills and 4 bourbon mash bills, maybe a 1 or 2 experimentals here and there. And then this year we're going to be releasing some barrel finished expressions. We're going to be releasing a completely new mash bill that we've never released before. And then at the end of the year, just like we did this past year, we'll release the Master Distillers Reserve series, which, the goal is to, I'm going to hand select a handful of barrels, 2 or 3 different mash bills, put them out in a special offering, limited offering at the end of every year.
Okay.
This particular one was only a couple hundred cases for all of our states. So
that's what I was going to ask. So the Master Distiller Select, you're going to release those every year.
Yes.
Awesome.
Yes.
Awesome,
Different
man.
mash bills, I'm gonna find some unique things and we'll throw it in there and, it ends up that only, depending on the state, most states are only getting 15, 30 cases, for the entire state of each expression. So it's kind of one of those when they land, you got to go find them.
Yeah, and it's like a blend of 8 to 10 barrels or something, right?
Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
Not a lot of
How's the
whiskey.
new rick house coming? Last time I was down there, you guys were building new rick houses and
Yeah, it's finished. We've got the barrels in it.
oh, do you?
It's about a 10,000 barrel house. It'll be full by the middle of next year. We had to end up building a lake to support the fire suppression for on the property. We didn't have enough water on the property. Then the lake kind of got out of hand, so now we've got a tour we're going to start this year on the lake that's going to be related to our toasted coconut rum. So stay tuned for that. It's going to be pretty fun.
Heck yeah.
Uh,
Well, one of the things we'll talk. I'll have you talk about this sweet mash process, but I mean, every time we've been there and we've tasted the distillate straight off the still, I mean, it is
mhm,
so tropical
mhm.
and I'm in love with it, and it really comes through in the ryes you've been blending. So, for those that may not know the difference between sour mash and sweet mash process and what makes you guys unique, I know there's a couple other distilleries that do the sweet mash process, but not a lot. You want to quickly just kind of explain that process?
I will, sure. And I mean, the simple, I think kind of a simple way to look at it is with sweet mashing, every single mashing, we're starting with fresh grain, fresh water, and fresh yeast. That's in its simplest form. That's what
Mhm.
we're doing now. In order to maintain consistency and hygiene and not lose batches for bacteria making vinegar instead of yeast making alcohol, we have to put in place some pretty unique sanitation procedures and special equipment to prepare for that. But we had some great partners. I got to know the guys at Wilderness Trail really well, and they were very very helpful. And really, of course, we put our own spin on it. But when I tasted their sweet mash rye whiskey that hadn't been released yet, it was their oldest whiskey was like 2 years old, and they took me in the rick house and poked a barrel and let me try it. And it really just blew my mind. So that was the inspiration to where I knew that we wanted to do something with sweet mash. Then just so happened that our size still, the water that we have, our farmers' grains that we use, has really created a really unique flavor profile that's not really that you don't find really anywhere else. Which as a whiskey maker, that's kind of what your ultimate goal is, to have something that's a unique flavor profile.
Yeah, I mean, I get so excited when I taste something that's unlike anything on the market, and there is not anything like that tastes like Hard Truth's rye on the market, in my opinion.
Yeah, and you mentioned the new make coming off the still on those tropical notes. I mean, really, that isn't something that I tasted at Wilderness Trail or really anywhere else. There's something about the combination of our place and the ingredients in the water and then the sweet mash process. But you're right, the distillate and it really goes across all of our ryes and all of our bourbons. So when we release our bourbon, you guys will be able to taste how that expresses itself in bourbon, which it's delicious. But whenever the new make has got almost like a guava or a mango kind of tropical fruit, big burst of tropical fruit on the front, which as it sits in the barrel changes for me at least to a lot of stone fruit and peaches,
Mhm,
and
mhm.
then some complex sugars and butterscotch and whatnot.
Yeah, butterscotch is always, like, the biggest note I get, but, when we were down there last tasting through barrels, you talked about jamminess, and since you've
Mhm.
put that in my head, I mean, I cannot get that out of my head.
Yeah,
There's
especially
such a good jamminess to it.
that
Oh, yeah.
malted rye for sure is for me, it's a real jammy fruit.
Yeah, it's so delicious, man. Oh,
Thanks.
yeah, I'm just excited that, you guys are when did Hard Truth when did you guys start? What year was it?
Yeah, so we got our license and had a couple of pretty pretty interesting pot stills to start with, and we started distilling in 2015.
Okay.
And really, if you have any of your people listening have been to Little Nashville in Brown County, our sister company has a pizza restaurant right on the main drag of Little Nashville, And the distillery was actually in a little tiny room right above the pizza restaurant that was about 900 square feet. So that's where we got started.
Wow.
And we got started with, not only a couple of very unique stills, but some used beer equipment for our mashing and fermentation. So it was it's kind of like when you start with, if we started with the top of the line equipment, maybe we wouldn't have tried so hard, but we had to really work hard on the front end. So now, we were there until our first run on the new system was fall of 2018.
Fall of 2018. Okay.
Hmm.
Yeah, I mean, us whiskey nerds, there's a couple things that, we hear of a place in Indiana and we kind of go, "Oh, I hope it's not MGP." And
Right.
then we also think, well, if it's a newer distillery, is there stuff super grain forward, or
Hmm.
does it have a lot of like wood kind of crafty notes to it? And
Hmm.
your stuff doesn't at all. It just blows me away. Even some of the rye we tasted at, like, I mean, barely 2 years old is just
Yeah.
unbelievable. I know rye ages a little better, faster, but, and your bourbons are the same way. We did a pick with A1, and the
Mhm.
bourbon that we picked is just so fruity. It's gorgeous.
Yeah, and that distillate, the sweet mash distillate going into the barrel, there's really not, because in a barrel you're looking for, the addition of the oak, subtraction of off flavors, and then reduction of the liquid and, oxidization from the angel share process. Essentially that's what you're looking for in a barrel. But with the sweet mash distillate going in, the quality is so good that we really don't need a lot of subtraction.
Mhm.
So, whereas, normally a whiskey might need 6 to 8 years in a barrel to get some of those off flavors out of the whiskey. We don't really have any off flavors to get out of the whiskey. So then it just becomes a matter of like when does that distillate and the wood meet at the perfect moment. So we really love the flavor of this rye whiskey at 2.5 to 3.5 years old. I don't think that ultimately that's going to be the final destination year, age for it. I really think it'll be more in the 3 to 4 to maybe 5 year for some of them. And our bourbon, we're going to let go a little bit longer. But it's exciting to taste it so young and have it taste so great.
Yeah, it blows me away, and I didn't know I could be more in love with your sweet mash rye, and then you came out with these malted ryes, and I'm like, "My goodness."
Those
This
are
is amazing.
fun. Those I was really excited about them coming out, and I'll be honest with you. I've had my favorite amongst the three of them has changed a couple different times. So.
Yeah. Yeah,
Mhm.
I've been tasting through them, and, yeah, it's we'll get into them. We'll get into
Yeah,
them.
sure.
Brett Curris said, "You had me at holler." If
Yeah.
Yeah, if you guys have not been down there, I mean, they have a beautiful little cabin that we stayed at, on site that's I don't know, I assume that thing is booked a lot most of the
It is.
time, but it's gorgeous. You can walk right over to the restaurant, have dinner, do ATV tours, moonshine tours. I mean, it's just a beautiful, great place to stay. I'm in love with it.
Thank you.
All right. Let's get Ben and Ed in here, and then we can start pouring these and taste through them. Let me get that off. Go. What's up, Ben and Ed?
Hello,
How's it
fellas.
going?
How are you
What's going on,
guys?
guys?
We're doing good.
You good
Doing
today?
doing good.
Oh,
Excited for these malted ryes. Big time. Can't wait.
yeah. Now you guys had the you guys got to go down to Hard Truth with us, and we had a great time down there with Brian, tasting through barrels, and Brian almost killing us on an ATV, and
Mhm.
That was
I
epic,
do
man.
I do a good job of that. I mean, I warn people when I take them out. I'm like, I really don't know where I'm going, and they think I'm joking around, but I really don't.
No, it was for real, Brian.
Yeah,
You did it upright, man. It was great.
yeah,
It was awesome.
awesome.
Brian, I don't know if you, I assume you can say where Brett wanted to know where you get your barrels from.
Sure, yeah. So we get our barrels from Independent Stave. They're based out of Lebanon. They have a cooperage in Lebanon, Kentucky, and a cooperage in Lebanon, Missouri. They've got cooperages all around the world, but that's their main two cooperages for their whiskey barrels. And actually, Chad and Andrew at Independent Stave really helped to work with us very one-on-one to create some real custom, unique char and toast combinations that are then, proprietarily ours now, that they only make for us. So that, you're always wanting to do something to help give you some additional differentiation. And so they took our new make and really helped us shape the flavor of what the wood was going to contribute to it in a real specific way. So love working with those guys. And then we also get some barrels from West Virginia Great Barrel Company. Out of they're in White Sulphur Springs, West Virginia. Great little cooperage. They're relatively new, but man, they're making some fantastic barrels.
Awesome. All right. Let's see. You guys want to pour this first one? We'll start with oh, I grabbed the wrong bottle. Let's start with just the malted rye. Is that what you would suggest, Brian? Or does
You
it
guys
matter?
do it however you want to, my friend.
Let's
Whatever
go
you wanna
malted
do.
rye, caramel
Okay.
malted rye, and we'll finish with the chocolate because that one's so unique. And but let's start with the malted rye. I will let me play this little video so you guys know what we're working with here. And then Brian, if you want, you can kind of just explain what the inspiration was behind starting these. So
You bet.
Play this for you guys. According to Hard Truth's website, the malted rye sweet mash rye is a remarkable expression of 100% rye whiskey, showcasing the incredible depth and richness that can only come from the malting process. It has a mash bill of 54% rye, 46% malted rye, and batch 1 is a small batch blend of 10 barrels, coming in at a proof of 112.2. Dude, every time I shoot your bottles, I just fall more in love with your corks.
I'll tell you what, you do an amazing job of your photography and video of them, man. They look great. Aren't those corks cool? So I heard in your review, you said that it kind of looks like the bark edge of the cork tree. It actually is the bark edge of the cork tree. So that's why each one is unique, completely unique.
I thought that it was down there. Yeah, I thought that it was, but I was like, I don't want to say this and it not be true. So and I didn't want to blow up your phone and ask you such a silly question.
No, it's all good, man. And it's funny because they in the cork making process, they kind of discard that part of it. They cut that little edge off. So we ask our cork producer, where we are, there's a lot of, we use a lot of live edge furniture because we're out in the woods. And so I had this thought of a really rustic top, and I asked our cork producer if they could experiment and do something with it, and they sent me a couple of those samples, and I was like, man, you guys nailed it.
Yeah, they did. It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
All right. So what was the inspiration behind starting these malted ryes?
Sure.
Go ahead. Sorry.
No, you're good. So, the malting process is essentially taking a grain and wetting it down to where it germinates, and it starts to put out its first little shoot. And then you apply heat and air to essentially kill the germination. So during that germination process, there are all these enzymes created that help with starch conversion, which is originally why they did it in the first place. But also it creates a lot of, to me, it's kind of some complex bready flavors, but not yeast really, but just kind of like it's hard to describe, but like when you think of a malted milkshake, I mean those kind of rounded, almost dairy bready notes. So when you add that in with the intense sweetness that also comes from the malting process, it adds just some really nice layers of complexity. So for this one, my original idea was to do 100% malted rye, where the grain was just going to be 100% malted rye. Well, just so you know, malted rye, the grain itself is extremely expensive. I mean, like really, really, really expensive. And we run, fairly big mash, 2,500 gallon mash. So we're running about 5,500 pounds of grain per mash in. So, when you're running with a grain that's like 8 times as expensive as everything else you run, you got to really think about it. So what I did was I did one mash in of 100% malted rye, and then I did a few mashes, bringing that percentage and marrying it with actual just regular rye grain. And so I found this really nice balance at about 54% rye, 46% malted rye, where I felt that the malted rye, did its best job of contributing to the whiskey. So you're going to get, it's 100% rye, so it's going to be a nice spicy, whiskey like you'd expect from a rye that's 100%. But then the layers of complexity, obviously you get that big bright sweetness that you get from all of our sweet mash whiskeys, but then that complexity of that malted rye contribution is really prevalent.
Yeah, it's like you just took your sweet mash rye and just added more complexity and some darker, richer flavors to it.
Yes, way more rich.
Yeah,
sure.
Yeah, it's gorgeous. What are you guys picking up on this?
That's a cinnamon roll in a glass without that overwhelming sweetness. It's a really good, like, doughy cinnamon malted milk ball. It's freaking amazing. God, it's good.
That's awesome.
Man,
I love the cinnamon roll, because that kind of that doughy nature of a really good cinnamon roll, is something that's hard to replicate that flavor.
Without all that overpowering sugar that you get. It's like if you took a cinnamon roll and just used cinnamon, dough, and maybe a little bit of honey. That's what I'm getting on this malted.
I like that.
But it's still got, it feels like it still has the DNA of the other sweet mash rye, It's you can pick up those tropical notes a little bit, the jamminess. I even got a little bit of like a leather note to it that I when I reviewed it. And like Brett's like Ed's saying with that bread note, it's some kind of yeasty bread note in there that sometimes I'll pick up on on a beer, but I don't want to turn people off and think that, it's not in an off-putting way at all.
Well, so if you think about beer making, I mean, with beer, they're using in varying, but mostly it's 100% malted barley of some kind.
Right.
So, in beer making, all of the grains have been malted. So there definitely is going to be, you're going to get that connection, and not, I don't think it as a bad way at all. I mean,
yeah,
I will say this though, I've still not tasted a beer barrel aged whiskey that I loved. I've tasted a couple that I liked, but and I want that to be a great pairing. And I know there's a possibility of it. There's probably one out there that I haven't tried that's great, but I've just not tried one yet I like.
Yeah. Yeah, I didn't know if that was intentional, since you're, the parent company owns Quaffon, the brewery. So I didn't know if that was intentional by you or not.
Yeah, I mean, I think playing with beer grains. I mean, we're obviously not the first ones to do it. There's some other stouted whiskeys out there. They call them stouted whiskeys that use the chocolate malt, or so we're not the first to do it. But I think that having the knowledge from the brewery on exactly how to treat those grains and in what percentage, and how to get the best flavors from them. You can't just whiskey's pretty. Making whiskey's a little bit more crude as far as temperature and the way that you mash. Beer is far more delicate of a process. So, we do have the equipment and the expertise to be able to treat those malted grains the way they should be treated.
Yeah. Mark said oatmeal cookie cork. That's hilarious, because I have this beautiful picture I took of just the top of the cork. Yeah. And it's on this photography book I have, and everybody thinks it's an oatmeal cookie when they see it.
Oh, that's funny.
What are you getting, Ben? Let's hear from Ben down there in the corner.
Yeah, what are you getting? Ben's a little slower. He's got to take his time,
Yeah, more delicate. For me, the fruitiness came out more for me, and it wasn't like a specific fruit, but when you mentioned like tropical, it is just very dense. And when I took that first initial sip, the one thing that I really appreciate about Hard Truth is it's unique. Like, I don't drink a lot of Hard Truth stuff often, but when I do, I'm like, this is different. And it's tough to really like put your finger on exactly what it is, which is I was trying to think about, but it's it's very well balanced. You do get that spiciness, but for me, I was gravitating more to the fruity, like the dense fruit, kind of jammy, like y'all talked about earlier.
Right.
Well, one thing that will never cease to amaze me is how you can get the viscosity you get out of a 2 and 3 year old product.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this thing coats like it's 12 years old. It's
Well,
amazing.
thank you. And I think a lot of that is tuning the still. You know, some people think of column still whiskey as being thin or thinner than pot still whiskey, which obviously, you know, it's easier to make a heavier bodied whiskey out of a pot still. But, you know, Vendome has got these stills. They know what they're doing with these stills. And if you spend your time tuning the still, you can really coax a lot of flavors out of that whiskey that typically don't come from a column still. So when I talk about our still being a 14-inch Vendome continuous column, it's 14 inches in diameter. So, you know, it's about that big around. And then we're bringing mash down the top of it, and it's going and hitting all those trays on the way down and hitting the sides. So if you think about in the bigger distilleries, you know, their columns are 72 inches wide, you know, 36 to 72 inches wide, some of them even bigger than that. And so they are absolutely just, you know, blasting mash down those stills. Makes great whiskey, but I think as far as body and viscosity, a lot of that has to do with how you treat it through the still. I mean, fermentation has to be right, mashing has to be right, but you can thin a whiskey out in the still pretty quickly if you're not careful.
Interesting. Joe Carter said, will the malted rye be distributed also or distillery only?
No, they are distributed, but
yeah.
only in about 5 or 6 states, I believe. So if you go to hardtruth.com, we've got one of those little spirit finder widgets. It's not always perfect. So the best thing for you to do, if you're someone looking for these, help a brother out, go to your favorite liquor store and say, hey, heard about this Hard Truth Sweet Mash Rye, whichever one, and ask them to bring it in. Because, you know, getting that kind of pull from the market is what helps us get the whiskeys that we want into the accounts that we want. You know what I mean? So,
yeah, I said in my review today, like people are chasing all these allocated ryes. And I mean, I go to this stuff all the time. I love it.
Thank you.
Chuck asked, where can I buy Hard Truth in Chambana? So I believe Benny's is carrying your stuff now, right?
They are. I'm not sure if they've got, you know, so the Illinois Spirit Finder is pretty accurate. I've found most recently.
Okay.
So it's one of those things where you put in your zip code, and then you can actually choose which item, and it'll tell you where you can find them.
Yeah. The 2 stores that I really love in the area would be Harvest Market. Ray at Harvest Market, I know carries Hard Truth stuff, but I just talked to him today, and he hadn't got the malted rye, but I think he might be getting some.
Great.
And then A1 in Effingham, which is a little bit of a further drive, but definitely worth it. And I did hear somebody say that they had seen at least the chocolate malted rye in Benny's, I believe. So
yes.
I'm 35 minutes from you, Brian, so I can come get it whenever.
There you go. Come on anytime you want, buddy.
We love that. We love that place. My fiance and I's 3rd date was at Hard Truth.
Oh,
and
awesome.
We actually were down there with another couple and actually 2 other couples, and they hadn't done the ATV tour, but we had done it. And we're like, you guys go ahead. We know you can only put 4 in. So one of your tour guides took us on a hike, and we did this like mile hike and came back.
Oh, that's awesome.
Said, what's that?
That's awesome.
Yeah. And we came back and she said, well, we've got like 30 minutes. What do you guys want to do? And I'm like, I don't know. She says, come on, let's go see what they got going on, and we'll give you a little backstage. I know that we're coming out, and I'm not supposed to say it. We're coming out with this new Sweet Mash Rye. And we're like, all right, cool. So we got to go in the distillery when you bottled like the first 11 cases of your Sweet Mash.
Oh yeah, that's awesome.
It was so cool. And
that's awesome.
We've been fans ever since 2020, big time.
We've got great people working there. I'm glad to hear that that's the experience you had. You know, we always say, if you can't have fun working with us or coming to visit the property, you just can't have fun.
I mentioned on Lance's review, I said, the Hard Truth experience crushes anything in Kentucky I've been to. It just, it's so far over and above. And I mean, you have so many options. Yeah. It's a weekend. It's not just 2 hours. You can do a whole weekend at your spot.
You can, and when the weather starts getting nice, the music venue part of it starts to fire up, and we've got some great concerts coming up this summer, so it's going to be great.
Awesome.
Yeah, we've talked about this a lot on the channel, but one of everybody's bucket list item is to do a barrel pick, and you guys have the ability to do a barrel pick. Anybody that comes in, what do you have, like 6 barrels there or something?
Yeah, so we do. So we've got actually a single barrel experience. It's a tour. So even if you're just you can literally walk in there tomorrow at 12 o'clock and noon and say, hey, I want to do a single barrel pick. And you sign up for it as a tour. You go with the tour guide. They walk you through a proper single barrel pick through the whole thing. It takes about an hour. You get to taste all these whiskeys. You pick your favorite. And then at the end, as part of the tour expense, you get to walk away with the single barrel bottle that you picked that's only available there at the distillery.
That's so awesome.
Yeah. That was a brainstorm by one of my partners. That's what I love about working with the folks I work with is, we're not stuck. There's a lot of amazing things about, the history and stuff of the distilleries that have been around forever, but we're not stuck in that paradigm. We can kind of do anything we want. So I love that they think outside the box on that stuff.
Yeah, and we were talking before the live stream, but some people watching this will be super excited who are members of Barrels for Hope because we haven't announced it yet. We've kind of hinted at it in Discord, but we did secure our second barrel pick of the year is going to be with Hard Truth. So
yeah, I'm so excited to have you guys out.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So we're gonna I'm waiting to hear how many people we can bring, but part of the whole experience, Brian, was we wanted to start a barrel club where people could join and ensure that if they were in it, they got a bottle of every pick we did. So we had to limit the number of people we could do.
Sure.
And then everything we wanted to give back to charity. We didn't want to make any profit whatsoever on it. So we set up a 501c3 and which Joe Carter helped us out with, and he's been amazing and got that through. So now we've got everything in place, and Narav with A1 is helping us curate picks. And so we found out our second pick is going to be with you guys because Narav knows what a big fan I am of Hard Truth. And I'm so excited to share Hard Truth with people who, that are in states that it's not distributed to. But then also the biggest part is every pick we select about 4 members randomly to go on the pick with us and help do the selection. And then we pay their lodging while they're there. So
that's awesome. That's going to be fun, man. These single barrels that we've set aside are some bangers. You guys are going to have a great time.
Yeah, I can't wait. And there's so many people in Barrels for Hope that, are excited because they hear Whiskey Tube talking about Hard Truth, but just haven't been able to get their hands on it yet. So it'll be a lot of fun. So, all right. You guys want to pour the second one, the caramel malt?
Oh, we're into it.
All right, hold on. Let me give everybody the stats here. According to Hard Truth's website, the Hard Truth Master Distillers Reserve Caramel Malt Sweet Mash Rye Whiskey, or RW4, brings the caramel corn and sticky toffee notes of caramel malted barley to match with the whiskey's inherent sweetness and rye spice. The mash bill is 51% rye, 38% corn, 11% malted barley. RW4 Batch 1 is a small batch blend of 8 barrels and comes in at a proof of 117.4. What do you guys think about this one? This one's so ridiculous to me. It almost gives me chills. It's so good.
So this, spoiler alert, this is my favorite one as well of the
Is
group.
it-
But I will tell you that this whiskey took a really interesting journey. It's tasted good because, we, especially for our first releases on these, we've been evaluating them pretty heavy along the way. But this one made a tremendous turn at late summer of this past year, this particular whiskey, because I wasn't sure. I was just going to do the chocolate malt and the malted rye. Because I wanted to maybe give this one more season. And man, it made some kind of turn at the end of the summer, and we were all like, because I mean, you guys, that's the highest proof of all three. It's at 117 point something. It
Yeah.
drinks way under that.
Yeah.
And the complex sugars in it are just, for me, it's sticky toffee. It's like caramel corn. I love letting people who always say to me, we get folks in our distillery a lot of times, and they'll say, oh, I'm not. They'll ask for a bourbon. And I'll say, well, our sweet mash bourbon isn't out yet, but have you tried our sweet mash rye? And they'll say, oh, I'm not a rye guy. And those are my favorite people. I'll break this whiskey out, and I'm like, you should definitely try this one. And it certainly opens their mind as to what rye whiskey can be.
Man, it's so ridiculous. I get the biggest note for me on this is like I mean, there's that butterscotch, a little bit of the tropical, but it's darker, more complex than the malted rye. But then there's this like very dense, buttery shortbread cookie note that I just can't get out of my head. That's so gorgeous.
Yeah.
That's a fat kid's dream, man.
Well, and this is this and the chocolate malt are the only ryes that we've got out in the market that have corn in them. So this will give you a little bit of a preview as to what which direction our bourbon is going, because this is 51% rye, 38% corn, and 11% caramel malted barley. So there's 38% corn in there is a fairly decent amount. So I've got some mash bills that are kind of almost just the opposite, 51 corn, 38 rye, and then some of the caramel malted barley on our bourbon side of things. So there's going to be some kind of, what you're tasting now in that is a lot of the same flavors that I'm currently tasting in our bourbon moving forward.
Oh, wow. Amazing.
Oh,
It's good, right, Ed?
oh, if that's where your bourbon's going, Brian,
Yeah.
whatever, BTAC. Who cares?
I wouldn't even care if
stuff.
this stayed exactly like it is, because we tasted when we were in your rick house, we tasted a lot of the caramel malted barrels, and I think that they were really good, but this is another level. Like, your blending is just amazing.
I would love to take the credit for that. I mean, obviously we've got a lot of people that are on our team that are great at helping out with that. But really, Lance, it was a matter of the whiskey taking the turn from the last time you guys were there till now.
Okay.
Because we didn't find, it wasn't like we found, 10 magical barrels. I mean, they were all amazing. And in fact, the only reason really why we only released that small amount is because our original distillation of this 3 years ago, we didn't distill that many barrels of it, so now, as we've tasted through, obviously we've kicked it into full production, so we're producing a lot more of it now.
Awesome.
But yeah, it's a great whiskey.
It's so good, man. I love it. I would drink this stuff all the time if I had more of it.
Yeah.
Now, Brian, you guys have a pretty solid relationship with Kroger, right?
We do. The Kroger's been a really good partner for us. Yeah.
Yeah. So okay, because I see it all the time in all the Krogers around here. I mean, they've got the sweet mash all the time, and I'm hoping they have the malted rye in there.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Again, where those landed, it's hard for me to tell, because I believe we had 30 cases in the state of Indiana, maybe like 15 cases of each in Illinois. I mean, there really wasn't a lot. So, and then, obviously once this is gone, I don't know what we're going to necessarily put out at the end of next year. So, I mean, I'm not trying to create some sort of, false demand. I'm telling you the facts, which are there's not a lot of this whiskey on the market. So if you want it, I would search it down and buy you a bottle.
Do you have it at the distillery?
We do. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice.
We do.
Awesome.
I'm drinking them compared to I'm going baseline with sweet mash.
Yeah.
and then drinking them against each other, and the viscosity again of all of these just blows me away. But that caramel is like kettle corn with toasted coconut.
Yes.
That's what I get
toasted coconut.
a bunch of coconut on it, and it reminds me a little bit of the coconut notes I get with seagrass.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I could see that.
And that's
interesting.
I mean, I'm with you, Lance. This stuff needs to go in the bunker. This
Yeah.
is phenomenal. Oh my
Yeah.
God. You guys
What do you think? What do you think, Ben? You all right over there?
Yeah, I'm still thinking. It's good. It's I'm not as big of a like caramel caramel corn. Like I'm not as big of a fan on that, and so I am getting more of that on here. And so I'm trying to compare it with the other one, because I think the thing I liked with the other one was it was a little less of that. Now, obviously, if you love that note, you're gonna love this, and it's really good. It's just not my favorite note.
Yeah, that's why I wanted to taste. When I thought about doing this review, or not this taster, but the actual review on the channel, I was going to do them individually, but I thought people would just get so much more out of tasting them, me tasting them in a flight, so I could compare and contrast everything.
Well, and one of my favorite things about this lineup that we've, the choices that we made at the beginning and still continue to is, MGP has basically 2 rye mash bills. Most people, have 1 or 2 rye mash bills, maybe just 1, and that's their mash bill they stick with. Because of our scale and our size, I knew that we weren't going to be able to feed a huge pipeline with our current system. So my idea and my thought on both the bourbon and the rye is I want to kind of pull one direction and the other direction with the ryes and the bourbons to give people a flavor experience that's all the way over here, all the way in the middle, and then all the way over here. And so, I love all the whiskeys, but what you get when you get that is that you get some people who absolutely, love those notes, and other people, it's not their favorite of them. And that's great. I mean, I love that, because then that lets me know, because all of our palates are so different. The things that were preloaded to like or dislike, or whatever you're feeling for the day or whatever, changes pretty drastically. So I knew it from the start. I didn't want to lock us into one lane. I didn't want to limit us in that way. So that's what's fun about all these different mash bills. Is every time I do a tasting, I was just at the Louisville Bourbon Society on Monday, and tasted through with those folks. And I mean, the room was split on who liked what the best. You know what I mean? It was really, I love seeing that. It makes me happy.
Yeah, I think that's what's great, and I think some whiskey people are funny. They act like you've insulted their mom if you don't like the same thing, which is just funny to me. And I've never been like, I mean, Ben's told me, like, I've done picks, and Ben's like, this tastes like shit. I'm like, that's okay, man. If you don't like it, that's fine. You're wrong, but that's fine.
You've never said that, Lance. Never.
Yeah, Ben will definitely tell you what he thinks. That's for sure.
I love it.
That's good.
No, it's great. I love it.
Going back to the first one, I was trying to figure out what that fruitiness was that I was picking up, and it reminds me of like Pez, like a powdery fruitiness. So it's not like a specific fruit that I have in mind, but I'm getting it's interesting. I like that more than the caramel and the other one. Still both really good, but
the nose, when you go back to the malted rye after it's been sitting out for about 15 minutes, the nose is unreal.
It is. Yep.
Golly. Good.
So on the lines of Pez, one of my partners, Tim, I think you guys met Tim O'Brien, his favorite tasting note with beer that he always looks for is fruit stripe gum. And he's that's like his favorite tasting note. If he can ever find fruit stripe gum in something, he's the happiest guy I've ever seen.
That's awesome.
All right, you guys ready to move on to the chocolate?
Oh man, I was nosing that. That thing is a ride and a half.
This one's the great divider. This is like cilantro.
Yeah. That's a great
It's
call.
either soap or it isn't, right?
Yep.
Yep.
When
Hold
you
on
talk
just a second.
about when you talk about
Or
a
not.
lot of the bourbons or whiskeys that I've had that have been finished in like stout barrels, that's what I'm getting here.
Oh,
Yeah, I can
It's a
definitely see that.
like a similar vibe with this one.
I'll play these stats real quick. According to Hard Truth's website, the Master Distillers Reserve Chocolate Malt Sweet Mash Rye Whiskey, or RW3, brings the deep roasted chocolate espresso notes from chocolate malted barley to play with the sweetness of corn and the nice baking spice of rye grain. This expression has a mash bill of 51% rye, 38% corn, and 11% chocolate malted barley. RW3 Batch 1 is a small batch blend of 8 barrels and comes in at a proof at 109.6. This one, Brian, you caused me to add a uniqueness bonus point to my scoring system, because
I love it.
I feel like I couldn't drink a lot of this, but if I'm in the mood and I know exactly what I'm drinking, I mean, I'm freaking in love with this, because there's nothing like this. I mean, if you love dark chocolate and espresso beans, I mean, that's this in spades for me.
Yeah. Brownie batter. I get some brownie batter, Dutch cocoa. I will tell you that I'm a terrible bartender, but I tried and tried, because I knew there was an old fashioned that couldn't be made of this, that would be something that I would want to drink every day. And I couldn't get to it. It made me really frustrated. Then we had someone who was a bartender at our tours and tasting center, and she said, randomly one day we were doing something. She said, "Hey, I want you to try something." Came up with a really great old fashioned with the chocolate malt, and I said, "Oh, good." And I mean, she absolutely nailed it. And it was I want to say it was she used brown sugar instead of, a regular sugar cube.
Oh.
There was no cherry. It was an orange expression. And then I believe she used, so there's a company called the Bitter Truth, and they had some really limited bitters they put out last year called wood bitters. And so it was wood bitters, orange expression, and brown sugar, muddled with this chocolate malt rye. And you guys, it was, like whenever someone gets a cocktail perfectly balanced, it was absolutely just knocked my socks off.
Well, I said that in my review. I said this would be amazing, and I bet you could create some ridiculous cocktails with this.
Oh yeah.
And somebody, I knew somebody was going to be mad that I suggested using it in cocktails, but I'm like, I'm sorry, the better the whiskey, the better the cocktails. It's
no question. And I mean, if you want to enhance a whiskey and it's a good whiskey, make a good old fashioned.
Yeah.
Then you've elevated, and I'm stoked to find this and put that in old fashions, because the dryness on it, man, it dries your palate out right now.
Yeah, like dark chocolate would, right? Like
real, yeah.
Yeah, that's really good. It's like, it reminds me when you open a bag of coffee beans and you smell the coffee beans, but you're also smelling like the bag as well, or even like a burlap bag of how they ship the coffee beans. Yeah, I get a lot of that.
I like that.
Ben, I knew you were gonna like this
jam right here.
Yeah, because we did a Balcones rye pick with A1. This is much better than the Balcones rye in my opinion, but it had that same similar, like, very dark chocolate espresso bean flavors, and Ben loved it. So I thought this was going to be your favorite one when I sent these samples.
This is easily my favorite. Yeah, it's
there's some folks that on Monday, there were 3 people in particular that had a very enthusiastic love for this whiskey, and I got it one particularly aggressive hug based on the love for it. But but then there are a few people who will tell me, and they will have absolutely no problem saying, "Not for me." So it's really the only one that we've released so far where I've had a few people that say "not for me," but there's enough people who love it, just like in this really strange way, that I know that we're onto something. You know what I mean? Because it's at 11%. chocolate malted barley, that's a pretty good amount. And, so you think it's chocolate malt is the same that you use to give Guinness its nice roasty flavor and its dark
Yeah, that's a
color.
good
So
call.
you're going to get those nice roasted coffee notes on this.
If you want to pair that with a perfect dessert pairing, pair that with tiramisu, and it would be off the chart.
That would
Love
be
it.
right.
Because
Yeah.
that is the dark, like Ben said, you get that coffee dust, that coffee on your tongue, but then you get the sweet. Yeah, I may have to do that. Man, that sounds good.
Yeah, it's almost like you're not drinking. It's like you're drinking a liqueur. Like that's what it feels like, and that's
Close to it without so much of that like artificial sweetness that you don't think, God dang, did they put something in this? It's so coffee, dark chocolate.
What's the proof on this one?
This one is
109.
109.6.
Oh, that's that's the freaking sweet spot proof right there.
Yeah.
Right around 110, that's money.
Well, and think about, if if you got friends over, if you're doing a whiskey flight, or if you're going through like, here, let's try this, having this as something in there to really kind of, turn the flight on its head, or give everybody a minute to really think about something different. That's what I love about this whiskey for sure.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like I don't want to taste the same thing every day. And this is so unique. All of your stuff. I said in my review, like I could have given all these malted rye probably a bonus point for uniqueness because there's nothing else like it. And there's nothing off-putting. It's just so good, man. For 2-year whiskey, it makes me excited, man. I'm excited to see what you guys do. Even if you stopped here, it'd be great, but I know you got a lot more things coming. So
oh yeah, a lot of things coming.
Yeah, that's the thing about a lot of craft distilleries is that they're some of them are doing some unique things, but you still taste the youth, and like that's the thing that kind of sucks because it diminishes a little bit what they're doing. But with this stuff, it's unique, and none of us have mentioned, oh, it's youthful, oh, there's a youthful note. It's none of that.
Well, thank you, and I thank you for that. It's a big compliment. One of the decisions we made from the start, and everybody does different things. There's nothing wrong with it. I mean, there's great whiskeys that have come out of smaller profile barrels, but that was one of the decisions we were going to make, is we weren't going to go with a smaller barrel. Not even like for part of our production, we wanted to stick with a 53-gallon barrel. We wanted to stick with Vendome equipment. So we wanted our equipment and our our barrels to be kind of in the sweet spot in the industry, but then we wanted to play with other parts of it to be inventive. So because to me, when you start messing around with either stills that aren't, I mean, I'll tell you what, the Vendome copper and brass works, I can't say enough. The stills were not cheap, but I mean absolutely bar none, best investment we made. They have run perfectly from day one with a lot of help from our, we've got great engineers. They don't tell you how to run them, but I mean, the equipment is incredible, and it makes great whiskey. I mean, you really got to work hard to make bad whiskey on those stills. I'm convinced of it.
Wow. So Mark had a super chat. He said, how is the malt made, as chocolate or caramel versus simple malted?
That's a great question. So think about this as the exact same way that you'd think about roasting a coffee bean. So you've got a coffee bean, a green coffee bean. You start to roast it. You go into the blonde roast, right? And then you take it a little bit farther and you get into like a light medium, and then a medium, and then a medium dark, and then a dark, and then an Italian roast. And that comes from just continuing to apply more heat and time. So over time, it just keeps getting darker, or like making a roux. If anybody here makes gumbo, you're making a roux, you just keep stirring it, and that flour gets darker and darker and darker. So this malted barley, same thing. They sprout it, they dry it to kill the germination, and then they continue to roast it. So there's it's called, in the beer world, it's called C60, which is the caramel malt roast. So that's been roasted about halfway between blonde and chocolate. So then you keep roasting it, keep going. Then you get into like, milk chocolate, then medium chocolate, and then dark chocolate, and then burnt toast. I mean, you can take it all the way. So the flavor difference between the caramel malt and the chocolate malt, those two whiskeys have the exact same ingredients in the exact same ratio. It's just that 11% of that malted barley was roasted farther for the chocolate malt.
Man, and you explaining that, it makes, I mean, chocolate malt is like creeping up as my favorite.
Yeah.
It's so good, man. So I know you get your corn from a local farmer, right?
Yes.
Are the other grains from local, or do you have to?
So we get some of our rye from a local farmer down in southwestern Indiana. We're working with him for him to grow more for us, and so I'm working on that relationship. So some of our rye comes from an Indiana farmer. All of our corn comes from Doug Miller, which is, his farm's very close to the distillery. They've been growing grains for the distilling industry for at least 3 generations. They grow great corn. He also has grown some of our wheat that we use for our wheated whiskeys. Our malted barley does come from our same grain supplier that supplies the brewery, but there are starting to be some maltsters now in the northern part of the state that are really come up with some good stuff. So, it's interesting when you talk about craft, Ben. Some of the choices you make are, do you want to keep these hard, rigid rules, that everything has to be from the state of Indiana? Well, if the best malted barley is grown in, whatever, Minnesota, maybe I want to do that. Unless your whole brand identity is all Indiana grain, which, obviously I would, and we actually have a whiskey coming out this year, which I can't talk about yet, but I'll give you a teaser, that is 100% Indiana grains grown by our 2 Indiana farmers. So that will be out this year. I mean, it's something that we want to do, but I'm not going to limit myself to that until I know that the quality is going to be exactly what I want at the end of the day.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Do you guys ship online anywhere? Work with any online shippers? Or?
So we don't, but I've noticed that there are some out there that are in states apparently that do. So we don't do it internally. No, Indiana's kind of, those laws are all fairly gray anyways, and we're growing, and we don't want anything to we don't want to trip over our own feet. So we're going to leave that to the people that know what they're doing.
And as somebody that just started a 501c3, it's a pain in the ass, even just like staying up to date on them and figuring out. And you're like, and then we get, well, why aren't you shipping to our state? So-and-so ships to our state. And I'm like, well, that doesn't mean they're doing it legally.
I have had friends ship me bottles of alcohol, and it happens.
Oh man, I wish that it would just fix. It's so silly, man. But
yeah,
I don't know. Especially when you got to sign. If you're signing for the package and showing an ID, like what is the problem?
It's liquor laws, man. I mean, they're so hyper regional, state to state, county to county. Everybody's got different laws. I mean,
the way I think of it is cars are doing it. Like if I buy a car in Indiana, I pay Indiana taxes. It's not a big deal. Like what is the holdup?
Everybody wants their little piece, Lance.
I know.
There's a lot of money. Yeah, a lot of money in it. Like with Texas, you have to buy liquor from a liquor store. You can't go to a grocery store. You can't go to a Kroger, a Harvest Market. Like it has to be a liquor store, and you can't buy liquor on Sundays, which is weird. But
yeah, they've got their lobbyists working hard over there.
Yeah,
Montana's the same way, and it's been that way ever since I can remember. All state owned. Can't buy prior to 10 a.m. Can't buy on Sunday. I mean, it is like it's like fishing. It's the slot limit, and that's it. That's all you're getting. So
yep.
But Indiana just opened up. What was it? I've been here 8 years, and I think they just started on Sundays about 4 years ago, Brian, maybe?
I think so. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. So.
All right. Well, Brian, I know you've been here an hour, so I don't want to keep you, man, but thanks for tasting through these. Did you have anything coming down the pipeline you can talk about? Or
Sure. We're in 20 states. We're getting ready to be in 22. We just opened up New York. We're going to be in California later this year. Been spending a bunch of time down in Texas. Love Texas. I'm going to be down there again on Thursday. So go to hardtruth.com, look for us, and ask your local retailer to bring us in. Helps a bunch. And Lance, thank you so much for having me. And Ed and Ben, great seeing you guys.
You too.
Yeah, thanks, man. We're looking forward to seeing you in April, hopefully, to do a barrel pick. So
And
sounds awesome.
don't ever change your label colors, because those are my alma mater's original football uniform colors. Hunter green and copper. I freaking
Awesome.
love it.
Awesome.
Love it.
I'm going to call those the Ed labels from now on.
That's awesome. Thanks,
All right,
Brian.
thanks, guys.
thanks, Brian.
Thanks,
Take
Brian.
care, bud.
Seeing ya.
But yeah, man, this was a great time. I love these ryes. Hard Truth is just continues to amaze me for 2 to 4 year rye. It's one of my most exciting distilleries. I love them, man.
They're super impressive. I'm excited for the barrel pick for Barrels of Hope.
Yeah.
I can't wait to see what they're doing in another year.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's gonna be the barrel pick there is gonna be fun. I'm super pumped that we get to do like the first rye that's actually aged and distilled on their property. Is gonna be amazing.
I could be wrong, but I think most of their rye was distilled on their property. None of their bourbon has been, but maybe I'm wrong.
No, their rye initially was distilled somewhere else.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, distilled. Yes. Right. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh,
Right,
you mean
right.
then it was aged on their property?
Yeah.
I don't know about that. I think it was aged somewhere else.
Okay. All right.
Initially, but I could be wrong. Either way, it doesn't taste the same as the shit that they distilled and aged on their property.
And it doesn't taste anything like any other craft is doing.
Yeah.
It's so much better.
Yeah.
The stuff that was aged elsewhere or distilled elsewhere at least has mint notes that I'm not particularly fond of, that the stuff that was distilled and aged on their property does not have. There is zero mint that I can find.
Zero. Yeah. You'd be hard pressed to know that was a rye.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or that it was 2 year.
Yeah.
Yep.
Anyway, guys, I missed you, man. I'm glad we got to do this tonight.
Good stuff, fellas.
Yep. Next live stream. When is that? March 7th?
Whiskey of ever, right?
March 7th is with Nick from Found North, I believe. So
Cool.
I might have the date wrong, but I'll send you guys, since you guys have the samples, send each other samples. Well,
I got 8, so send me 17. Send Ben 8.
All right. Love you guys. Thanks for everything, man. Hope you have a great
All right,
weekend. Thanks for jumping on
See
tonight.
y'all.
All right,
Thanks for
see you,
everybody
fellas.
watching. Later, guys.